What up? What up? We back. We took a break, just a week. This is the Ari and Syd show. I'm Ari.
And I'm Syd. We're forever friends, and this is the shit we care about.
On any given day, we're texting back and forth, talking about some shit that's meaningful. Sometimes it's not so meaningful. And so we made this show to get together and share our shit with you. I just thought of that right now. So we're going to keep that in there. Um,
I like that.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
think,
If you're, I'm sorry.
no,
Go
you're
ahead.
good. No, I was cutting into you. Go ahead.
So if you hear some shit that you like, you agree with, you got some questions, comments, concerns, feel free to leave us a comment, a review, like, subscribe, follow, do all that good stuff.
Word, word. And so let's get into some shit. We are talking about what family means today, how we define it as individuals, and our favorite memories of being with our family. So we're going to start you off, Syd. How do you define family?
How do I define family? I think I would define family as like people who show like consistent love and respect, right? Like, I don't think family is tied to blood relation, although, like, of course, like that is like your biological family. I think it really has to do with how people treat you and how, they allow you to be treated as well. What about you? What screams family?
Um, Family is definitely, I feel like I agree with you there as far as not needing to have a blood relation to be considered family. I think that family is definitely about the time and the effort that you put into it. So while I still love all of my biologically related family members, I think that I add people and have added people to my family along the way because maybe I lean on them a little bit more than I would lean on them if they weren't family, right? Like you have friends that you go to who are strictly their friends, you talk to them or whatever, but then you have people who are friends and become family. And sometimes I find myself having them be my rock. I mean, you're one of them outside of, my regular biological family members. So that is my answer. I think it's such an interesting topic too because it's in high school. I remember people being like, "That's my brother," to people that really weren't their brother and sister. And I remember this one time, these two people who I knew, and they were like, "Yeah, that's my brother. That's my sister." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. What's your dad's name?" Because they were trying to pass as being really, really related. And they both had practiced every other answer, but they definitely did not have that one down. So, like, actually, we're not really related. We just like to say it. And I thought it was so funny because in my mind at that point in time, I was like, well, if that's your brother and that's your sister, then you have to be blood related, at least, with one of your parents.
Yeah.
And I was like, at least I know you don't have the same moms. I've seen one of them. So I know. But anyways, and then now that I've gotten older, working in the different fields I've worked in, I definitely don't think that you have to have, blood relation, not even to a parent, right? Because, you have different types of parents. There's, if you were adopted, you have maybe both parents, you adopted you, and then maybe you have a step parent, or maybe like you grew up with your grandparents and those are your parents. It's so interesting learning as you grow how ignorant you were when you were younger and thinking like, nope, my mom and my dad are my mom and my dad because I'm blood related and this is my only brother. I'm not considering anybody else to be my brother. And I have a sister and I'm not considering anybody else to be a sister. And now it's like completely that's out the window.
Yeah. Did you grow up hearing blood is thicker than water?
I don't think so. I don't think I remember that being, I know I've heard it, but I don't think that was something that I considered. What about you?
Yeah, no, I definitely heard it, and like heard it a lot. And but like in my head, I was like, okay, but like you said, like for me, like I've always had friends that like I considered family. First of all, I've always had play cousins. And like when you learn that your play cousin is really a play cousin, I think that's when you start to realize that like family isn't only blood tied, because I grew up with people thinking that we were blood related and not even realizing like I have no idea how we're even blood related, and then realizing it's because we're not. And still to this day, they're my cousins. Like I have plenty of folks that like I walk around and call my cousins, because like from childhood, our families are just that connected. Like we are family no matter what. So as much as like I've heard that growing up, I never could like really like fully subscribe to it, because I know that there are people in my family that ain't really family.
Yeah.
But I also in middle school, I did there was a girl that I went to middle school with, who I we did go to high school together at some point too. I don't think she graduated from Glendale though. But people really thought we were twins in middle school, and they would get us confused like in the hallways. We were like, this makes no sense, but we gonna rock with it. And we were those girls that walk around and be like, yeah, we have she lives with this person and I live this, like just making up random stuff because people would not let it go. So we're like, we're just gonna go with it.
That's so funny. It's
Yeah.
people used to think that me and my brother were twins too, and that's because we really, until he got as tall as he is now, we looked like we were fraternal twins. And so that's funny that people confused you with somebody that wasn't necessarily
Like,
your blood sibling. But
yeah.
um I think I have also had play cousins, not because of them being around for a long time, but because I was always around. I was always around them and their family. And even like I would be around them so much, I would hear their parents' friends, "Oh, is this your daughter too?" So you're like, well, yeah, kind of. I'm like, sure, whatever. It's definitely they played the role, so it's always fun to have that. Like it's also kind of like, yeah, we're not really cousins secret too. Like everybody think, I don't know if that was a thing when you were a kid, but it's like, yeah, I'm gonna tell everyone that's my cousin. And they're really not though, and only you and me know that in our families. But it's really interesting because since my mom is white and I have a set of white family members, I don't know why I said that like that, but I had a cousin, or I have a cousin who is definitely she's like 3 weeks younger than me. And people wouldn't believe that we were cousins. She would tell people that I was her cousin and they would not believe her because I don't look completely, I mean, I'm white, but I don't look like it, right? I look black. So people would like test her and they would come and ask me. And I'm like, yes, that's my cousin. What are you trying to prove? I don't understand. Um, and I think that also plays into the idea of family, because you think that you all have to look, well, people think that, oh, if you don't look like your family, then you're not really related, you're lying, back to that play cousin stuff, like, oh, you're white and your mom, like, even that people would my mom is white, so people were like, oh, that's your mom. And yeah, that's my mom. I don't know how to prove it to you, but I'm not gonna sit here and lie and pretend somebody else is. Um, so society definitely has their set of ideas that you learn, and you either unlearn them and be like, oh, actually, you don't have to look like your family, and if not, then you choose to stick with those archaic societal roles that people placed on individuals quite some time ago, and remain oblivious to the actual factuals.
Yeah. I think it's also, but like, so when you're talking about like characteristics of your family and like things that like are similar, when you talk specifically about like physical aspects, I think it's really like one, like genealogy is really cool, right? Like the fact that like you can look like so many people. And for like me, my dad is a triplet. So he has
Mm-hmm.
an identical brother, right? And a fraternal like twin or triplet sister. And like we, the five of me and my four siblings, and my what, 10 plus cousins that come from my aunt and my uncle, we all look alike as well.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Which is so, first of all, it's creepy. But I mean, it of course makes sense because for some of us, our dads are literally identical
Same.
twins.
Yeah.
And then like, yeah, and so when we talk about like DNA and things like that, it's like, wow, like we are very close to being like siblings just because of that. And so like when you're talking about family again, like it can get deep. Like
Yeah.
the bio level, like it's genes and like all that stuff is so interesting to me. Like I'm always like so interested in learning about like who you come from and like where you come from and things like that. So I think when you have the opportunity to tap into that side of biological family, it's important to. And like it also can be like an exciting time and a bonding moment for your family.
Yeah. I think that I've always wanted to go back like down my family tree um to see, and I'm sure one of my uncles and aunts has an idea of our family tree because they've had family reunions. They're all on the East Coast, so I never really attended them. One day. But anyways, on my mom's side though, the one thing that I have to like hold and I share with people about my genealogy is because my grandpa married my grandma, and she had a maiden name of Potterf. So it had two F's at the end.
Mhm.
And her family moved over here during World War II. And so they ended up dropping an F
Mhm.
to sound less German because that time was a little tricky. If you were German, you didn't know which side of the fence you were on, right? So they wanted to seem a little bit less German like, and they changed their last name. And that's something that I'm like, oh my gosh, I can tell people that. But I really want to know more about, were they Jewish? More details because unfortunately she passed away, so I could never ask her. And I think it's something that I would feel strongly about. And then the same on my dad's side, I know up until my dad's parents, I don't know anything else about anybody beyond that. And so it's been a goal of mine. I've wanted to do the 23andMe. Um, and it's so funny because the one reason why I was like, no, I don't want to because they'll sell your DNA. And then we just did the Be the Match thing and sent our DNA off to be donors. And I'm like, that's out the window. So I might as well just do it now. My DNA is off in a system to try and be a donor. So what do I have to lose? So yeah, maybe we can share that on a future episode if you want to do that with me. I heard they go on sale around Black Friday, the little tests to
Look at you trying to
see.
get us buying a sale. First of all, I do want to put Ariana on the spot that she's been having fun, and look at she's trying to drag me into her fun with her.
Look here. There's nothing wrong with a little
A little,
consumerism. You know what I mean? Especially I held off. Back when the pandemic first started, everybody was like, "I can't keep track of my Amazon packages." I wasn't ordering nothing.
that was
I
me.
didn't. I kept it kosher. I was staying in my lane and not ordering. And then you know what? We're 8 months in. Somebody told me we're like 232 days or some shit into this pandemic. And I've stayed home quite a bit. And I was an avid thrifter. I was going to stores mostly. And I haven't been doing all of that. So to my defense, I'm just now getting on board with not keeping track of my packages and stalking my mailman and UPS drivers because I put the wrong address in, and luckily, thank your mailman, your mail people, because they're like, yeah, I told one, hey, I put the wrong address. The address I put in is actually gonna go to the middle of the street, so it's actually mine. So if you could just, keep track of it, let me know. You can give it to me, please. I told one. Then the other day, I was like, hey, I don't know if the other guy told you, but I'm gonna tell you anyways. He's like, yeah, I saw the note in the truck.
Oh, see,
So amazing. I was like, if we were in the middle of pandemic, I would bake y'all some muffins or some shit. But I'm not. I'm not trying to be the blame of anybody catching the Rona.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm
seriously.
maybe I'll get them a card or something. Like, thank you for your service, really.
That'd be nice.
But anyways,
Down for that.
let's
I would definitely be down for the 23andMe thing. Um, I think that'd be really interesting. I think on top of like tracking down like lineage, I think it's really important to like talk to folks in your family when you can, right? Like there's so many questions I want to ask my grandmother about raising little black triplets, first of all, in Phoenix, Arizona in the 60s, right? Like there's so many things I want to ask people in my families, and so that we can have those experiences and those stories to continue and pass down and like learn from them and like grow
yeah.
like that. So talk to your families, people. I think it's like, and also one thing that I've been doing that I've gotten to do with just since quarantine is like have these like little virtual meetings. I got to like bring together a bunch of women on my dad's side of the family, and we got to talk about like our birth stories, and that was super dope. So like I want to do that more and talk about more things with all my family,
Yeah.
just so that we can like know what's going on. And I think it's really important too, just on like the health side of things as well, whether it be physical or mental health, to like know where you come from and know who's around, so you can support your family. Um,
Yeah, for sure. I think it's also important because, you know, people are going to leave this earth one day, and all those questions and conversations that you could have had, are now just like you have to go off of paper trails, or he said, she said, which is okay. But I think there are a lot of conversations that I wanted to have with my grandpa, as I was like, oh my gosh, I mean, he was in his 80s, so I probably should have just been like, I know he's not going to be here forever.
mhm,
But I never wanted to ask questions because I was like, I didn't want to feel like I was being morbid, you know,
mhm.
asking questions because I'm afraid of, the end. So I think it's definitely important. And, now I just have conversations of memories with my families that, had him around and all that. So definitely, definitely, if you have grandparents, take advantage, because, there are definitely a lot of people who cannot say the same. And that's not a guilt trip, it's just a fact. So it's okay if you don't have grandparents, it's okay if you do have grandparents. And if you do, talk to them. And if you don't want to talk to them, write them a letter. I used to go and sit with my grandpa and watch golf on TV for at least a good 2 hours. After, I would go in and out of the room because you know what? It's golf. And he would tell me about like the different golfers, and he would hype me up because he would be like, yeah, women golfers are actually better than men. I'm like, that's because women are better at everything. I'm just kidding. Um, but yeah, so I definitely missed that. So please, please take advantage, and um, let's move it a little bit forward though. Since we're talking about family and name dropping our family members, do you have a favorite memory of you and your family that you would like to share with us all?
Um, so I have a lot of favorite memories, which is funny because on Sunday, so right now, because my parents are officially empty nesters, whoop, whoop, shout out to them. They have us. We do Sunday dinner every week, and we virtually call in, and we do like a Zoom call for like all of us, right? Which is really cool because I'm out here in Maryland. I have a brother that's in Seattle. People are spread around Phoenix, and so we were talking about like our favorite childhood memories, or like remembering like where like our earliest childhood memories and things like that. But because my siblings were all like different ages, there's only so many memories we have of us all together doing something.
Oh yeah.
And so I think my favorite one of like all of us together was when we drove as a family from Arizona to from Phoenix to Atlanta because Bobby was graduating from Morehouse. And that was so lit. It was so lit because like one, like that's a drive, right?
That's why I'm shaking my head. That drive.
Yeah. And I was young, so like I wasn't driving yet. So it was like my mom, my dad, and Freeland, one of my older brothers, who like really switched between, and I was like the all-star passenger because I would stay awake with everybody because I wasn't driving. So like, I'd sleep
Mm.
sometime, then I'd be up and whoever needed me to be in their passenger seat. But it was really cool because the trip took so long, you know what I'm saying? And then we got to Atlanta, we got to see Bobby, we got to see Morehouse. And then we drove back with all his stuff, right?
Wow.
On the back of the truck. So that was cool. Added one more person to drive. But on the way back, we stopped in Texas, in Texarkana. And that was like so wild. But we got to like see my grandmother and like, my uncle and where they live. And like the trip through Texas and on the dark highways, I don't miss that. But it was a
Yeah.
we're past that because we got hella stories where we're like, thank you for letting us get through that because that's wild. But I think that's my favorite memory because we were all together, and we got to like travel as a family. And I'm a sucker for a road trip. So yeah. What about you?
It's so funny because my family actually hasn't been all together in so long, unless a funeral, which is so sad. And I know that's not abnormal because a lot of people are like that. Um, so I hate to say like, oh, my favorite memories are when we were all together because usually it would be because of a funeral.
Mhm.
Um, but I would say, when was the time of my life? Probably when I graduated from ASU. Um, the graduation itself kind of sucked because I didn't know I had changed my degrees so many times, as I mentioned in previous episodes. By the time I got into my degree and graduated, I had few friends that were the same age as me or the same class level as me. So I graduated by myself in the seats. But afterwards, my whole family was there to celebrate my accomplishment because there's not a lot of people in my family who have degrees or had a degree at my age, which isn't necessarily a dig at anybody. If you have a degree older, that's perfectly fine. But having that whole experience of going through undergrad and then seeing it all the way through and then having all my family there, you were there, we all went to eat. um I got some money. But I think it was just such a I feel like it was a monumental moment in my life because it's one thing to have family members that tell you nice things and whatever, but everybody coming together to celebrate an accomplishment that I was the first to do out of however many people. um it was really nice, and it's like, also I hope that for my younger cousins and things like that, and maybe I'm an example. Or maybe, along the way I can help them reach whatever goals, whether it's college or, whatever point in their life they want to go towards. Um, so yeah, because a lot of them were there too. And yeah, I think it's kind of selfish for me to say that also because it's about me. But really, it was a definitely something that I'll probably never, well, I will never forget because it was just a super amazing day. Um, so yeah, that is that is my answer. I know it's not super like
That's beautiful though.
grand. Thank you.
And I think you are definitely a role model and someone to look up to for your younger cousins and for your goddaughter.
Yes, of
Duh.
course. Duh, can't forget
Yeah.
about Amina. Amina
Godparents
bean.
are very, very, also very important part of families.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Y'all have your own day. Well, I can say y'all do, but I'm also a godparent. My godchild ain't even she's like 10 years old, bro. Like she's
She's
like,
your height.
there's a wild dynamic here. Like it's so funny talking about her and like just talking about her versus Amina. And she like has a cell phone and Amina's her background and she calls my phone to talk to her sister. Is whatever. But
Wow. She
godparents are
grown.
important though. And like I think sometimes someone I saw on maybe it was on Twitter. People were asking like, "What's the point of godparents? Like, what is a godparent
Mm.
and what's the point of them?" and or like how do you decide? You know what it was? That's what it was. People were talking about Paul Gasol being the godparent or goddad for Kobe Bryant's children,
Oh,
right? And they're like, this is how you step up as a godparent because he like invited them to celebrate Halloween with him, and they all dressed up as a family unit, right? Which is really really sweet. And so people were talking about like, this is what godparents do. Like they don't just like you don't just get to throw your name on there or whatever. But I think godparents are important because like it's a extra adult to just like care and vibe with you and like does it like with no like unconditionally. Like you
yeah.
me like that's so dope, and like I know that like I have another adult or supportive person that's older than me that I can confide in, and maybe in a different way than like my parents, right? Like
Yeah.
hope is that like if there's ever something that Amina is just like quote unquote scared to tell me, that she'd be okay with telling you and Jackie because y'all her godmoms.
Mm.
So that means one of us is going to catch her, right? Like one of us be like a good place where she feels like, okay, I can bring this information. uh,
Yeah.
so
That's real. I think the idea of a godparent didn't actually occur to me what it was. And I mean, even now, like, I feel like I'm probably not a very good one. I think that, you and Amina's lucky because she was born in a point in my life where I actually am like on the way to having my shit together. But like, being told you're a grandparent at 19 and 20 years old, or not grandparent, wow, let me rephrase, a godparent at 19, 20 years old, like, sure, I was with those people, like, I'll show up when you need me, whatever. And um I think it's definitely been something where I'm like, dang, I should probably do more, but I never knew. I don't have any examples to go off of, you know what I mean? It's such a not a taboo thing, but I don't know. I don't have any. I don't know anybody that has
yeah,
anyone
but
that's
for you, I think like it's different, right? Especially for Amina, like both of Amina's godmoms are in Arizona, but both of Amina's goddads are in Atlanta. Like, so it's not like
uh
opportunity to like pick her up or like, hang out with her when we need you or babysit, right? But the great thing is she will be able to spend time with y'all in these respective states. You know what I'm saying?
mhm,
Like, even if it's from far away, as she grows up, she still has y'all to support
right.
in the other way. It's not like y'all don't ask about her. All of y'all ask about her. Like all of y'all call and ask about her. All of you ask if we need things for her. You know what I'm saying? Like that's at this point, that's all we need. We can't, there's only so much we can do, right?
That's true.
I know that if anything were to happen to Mo and I, the four of you all would be like, I mean, the four of you, including like also like our parents and our families, but the four of you that we decided were her godparents would step up to the plate and be like, okay, what do we need to do for Amina? And then also you all would take into consideration how we feel and what we think in regards to her well-being as well, too, because you guys care
Yeah.
about it, close friends. So um yeah, I don't think you're a bad godparent at all. I think
Well,
you're
that
a
makes
and I know that like if we were in the same space, it would look different because you would be able to like come and see her more. But like with what we have, you're doing great.
all right. I'll take that. And you know, yeah, I have other godchildren, and I, yeah, I don't know. I think it's definitely just such a it's an interesting dynamic, especially if like, I don't speak to their parents as much as I used to, like I still think about them as if they were, here and like I was still speaking to them on a consistent basis. But, I don't know. Anyways, I digress off that topic. I think that this is a good
Yeah, I think we're going to the same spot because I wanted to
yeah.
ask you. I know that so we talked a little bit about adoption earlier and like about like extended families and like non-traditional families, right? And I know that you spent some time working with like adoptive families or in like adoption. Um, so I wanted to ask you about that because November is National Adoption Month, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to kind of ask you like well, first I guess you could tell people kind of like what work you did and how you worked in adoption and kind of how that was.
Yeah. So I worked for an organization in Arizona called Arizona's Children Association. I may have spoke about them before. I can't remember. But anyways, I came to them as a community resource parent worker, which is technically just a foster care worker that helps walk families through the process of becoming a licensed foster parent. So in the state of Arizona, you have to be licensed by an agency to allow children to come and live in your home as a foster child.
Mhm.
And the definition of a foster child is is a child who's been removed from their biological family and placed into the care of the state, so DCS. And so I worked a lot with families to write their home study, because to become a foster parent, you have to have different boxes checked. You have to have a background check. You have to have a fingerprint clearance card. You have to have a home study written, and that would be written by your foster care worker. Um, and then after a certain point in time, if a child becomes legally available to be adopted, which means the parents' rights have been severed by the state and the courts, that means that they are now eligible to be adopted. So if a child was living in somebody's home for X amount of time, because the time actually differs by age, by states, by time that they've been in care. So if a child was removed at the age of, 0, I wouldn't say 0, but 6 months, um, the time that they try to limit the amount of time they spent in care. So whether that's reunifying them with their parents, or finding a kin. So like somebody, it doesn't even have to be somebody related, somebody who has a relationship with the child already. Those are their first steps. And then after those steps do not become successful, they reach out to the community and they seek people who would be willing to foster. And then they use this term a lot in the world, foster to adopt. It's really not a true thing. I mean, because if a child is in care, their case, which is meaning the status of their dependency, whether it's on the state or a foster parent, it can change from reunification to back to um, not reunification and potentially severing the rights of the parents back to reunification. It can change over the course of 3 months, 6 months, however often the cases or the court hearings are, it can change. So foster to adopt isn't as simple as that, but it is possible to have a child in your home, foster them, and then see the case through so that the children's rights are severed. And if you have a relationship with that child because you've fostered them for however long, of course you're going to be the top choice to
Mhm.
adopt them,
Yeah.
unless they're there's so many things. So I don't want to go into all those details, but basically I helped talk parents through those processes, as a support for them. If like a child was reunified overnight, a lot of times people reunify during a holiday. So like if a child is seeing visits more often, seeing their biological family more often in shorter time increments, as far as like it goes from a month to two times a month to, once a week, you'll notice that the closer you get to a holiday, the more likely it is for the child to be reunified to their biological family. So I've had families in the past who maybe their child was in their home, and then like a holiday came around and they had a court hearing right before, and then they're having to work through, oh my gosh, they're going to be reunified. So walking them through those processes, and then also, doing the adoption home study and all that. So I know that was a very long-winded answer, but there's so many. I've seen so many things come up and all these stigmas about foster children and this need for people to want to adopt babies because they think that nothing is wrong with a baby. But realistically, there's been studies like if a baby is removed from a family, it's not because like they're healthy, right? Like there are
Right.
a lot of times where a baby can be healthy, but let's say the mom was drinking and smoking and doing drugs while they were pregnant. The effects of those could be seen later down in a child's life. So you may get a baby who appears to be healthy because they don't have, there's all these symptoms that babies have if they're withdrawing or if they have fetal alcohol syndrome or those kinds of things. If you don't see those, that doesn't mean that they're going to be, a normal baby. They could just have other needs later down the line that you just have to make sure you're equipped for. And I think the state of Arizona has gone away from allowing parents to only define their parameters around, like, I only want a baby that's under the age of 1.
Hmm.
I think they've gone away from like that being your first choice because there are so many children in care who are legally uh, eligible for adoption, meaning they have no family. Their parents do not have any rights to them. So they may be living with a grandparent through um, informal care, which is okay. But the older you get, the longer you stay in limbo. If you're a 10-year-old and a family comes in and the family sees, okay, same race, no needs, XYZ, but I have a 5-year-old, the chances of that 10-year-old getting adopted is less likely because there's people want babies and younger kids and because they're so cute and all these things. But to me personally, I think the most important developmental stage, at least as I've seen, is those preteen teen years. Like you develop a lot of life skills in those that you actually remember. Because a big part of your development happens between 0 to 3, right? Just like naturally, and how your body functions, and reading levels and all that. But like skills that you actually practice, I feel like, in a sense, to like you're choosing, like I'm going to choose to learn how to make breakfast in the morning, or like have what is a savings, how does a savings work, life skills that happen that you can lead down a path of A or B if you choose not to learn those skills, or maybe not even choose, maybe you weren't given opportunity to learn those skills. Anyways, um so I feel like adopting older children is definitely important, and once I get to a point in my life where I can actually have children, I mean, I live in a 1 bedroom right now, so having a child in general doesn't make sense for me. But at some point in my life I would like to adopt, a few teens, because when I was a teen, I couldn't imagine how I would have turned out had I not had any type of support as far as that was stable and consistent, because we all know every teen is one adult away from success. And I used to be a teen director at the Boys and Girls Club, and that was something that I held like so like strongly, because helping a child do their homework or catch up on their homework could determine whether or not they graduate from high school. Graduating from high school is just like the bare minimum. If they can do that, they can do, whatever, go to college, join the army, go to trade school, and all those things. So, anyways, I got off topic there for a second. But in Arizona and Maricopa County, Doug Ducey, like a few years ago or however long it was ago, identified November. They did a proclamation. So, November is National Adoption Month. And it may not be the case for every state, but in Arizona, it is. And then actually, the Saturday before Thanksgiving is always National Adoption Day. So, what happens is courts are usually open Monday through Friday, right? Unless there's like special circumstances. And National Adoption Day on Saturday is. So what happens is all these families who have been either fostering children and working with the case to go towards adoption, and finally the children are eligible for adoption, they get to go to the courts. And there's usually, not because there's a pandemic this year, so it's not the case, but usually there's this like huge celebration out in front of Maricopa County courts, family courts, and they have like vendors and jumpy houses and face paint and free food and all this stuff, and it's like a huge celebration. And families get to go in as foster parents and come out as parent, like,
Yeah.
that's because when you get adopted, you get a whole new birth certificate. The parents who adopted you are listed as your parents on the birth certificate. So you go in with one birth certificate, come out with another, and like it's such a beautiful day. And I used to work it when I was a foster parent worker, and It's just amazing because children's lives truly change when they get into families that love and care for them. And even like there are families who adopt children and the biological families are still involved. So
Mhm.
even if, like, there's been parents who've adopted children and then the biological family identifies them again because let's say they have another child go into care. They're like, no, I want them to be the foster parents and potentially adopt them. Like, I'm only going to sever my rights and give up my rights if those people can adopt them. And
Yeah.
it's just some, it's, I'm getting chills. It's like so powerful. And I think that if at one point in your life you've thought about adopting a child, I think it's something to truly consider because I don't know what the numbers are currently, but it's in the tens thousands of children who are in foster care, and I don't know how many are legally eligible for adoption, but it is a quite large number as well. And so if you can't adopt, consider fostering. I mean, you develop relationships with children. I remember going back to the Boys and Girls Club when I left weekly when I left because like you develop relationships just off of seeing them once or twice a week.
Yeah.
Imagine having a child into your home that you give and give and give to because you love them and you develop that relationship with them and then like potentially being able to adopt them. That's just such an amazing story. Um, and that is what I have to say about that. I have so much to say about it. You know, I didn't leave that position because I hated my job. I left it just because I decided to go down a different route. And it's something that I always like. I don't know how many times I've name dropped the organization because the work that they do is just so powerful. And they're not the only organization. There's like Christian Family Services, there's Jewish Family Services, there's Baptist. There's so many in Arizona alone. And I know there are so many out there all also. And also, just one other thing, when you hear an organization that does this type of work, they are not like the enemy. You know what I mean? While they do receive funds from the state, they have to, right? Like you have to receive funds from the state because how else are these children going to be provided for? You know what I mean? Like people, I've seen a lot of times people, and you know, some people do it only for the money because you get a stipend each month to foster a child. But realistically, that money is supposed to be used for the child's needs.
Mhm.
And without that, who's to say that a family is going to be even able, because people don't, you don't have to have a lot of money to foster. You just have to be able to pay all your bills
Mhm.
and have money for food. And I mean, realistically, that's most of America, right? You have enough to pay your bills and have food. If you have extra money to spend, you're living the life, really. Like if you can buy a pair of shoes once a month, hey, that is something a lot of Americans cannot do. So, getting funds from the state is not necessarily something that you should look at as a negative thing. Because people are going to be people, whether or not they have the money, right? They are going to be, they're either going to be driven towards money or they're not. You're either one or the other. And so we hope that people who become foster parents and adoptive parents are not doing it for the money. But just know that when you hear those organizations and you see one who's doing child welfare work, do not just automatically assume that they're like taking away children because it's money. Because Child and Family Services in Arizona, it's Department of Child Safety, they they do work hard to keep families together. They're not just ripping children away from parents. You know, there's programs that even if you were doing drugs and drinking and all of that during pregnancy, there are programs that help families keep their babies and maintain some type of stability because 40% of children who go into care end up being re-abused and you know all those things, and it's not because they're bad people just fostering, but it's just traumatic experience. So that's all that that's the last thing I'll say about that. Not all, because I have a ton. We can talk about this for an hour really, but
Also,
um
now that you talked about like how people can go about supporting if they want to foster and adopt, but for people who like don't feel like they can or like aren't in that space, what can they do to support families that are fostering or adopting, if anything?
I would say it's definitely something that you just have to be cognizant of how you're speaking, because, you know, when people adopt children, they may not look like each other, right? I could adopt an Asian baby, and if that's my baby and I'm going around outside and doing my only thing, don't just like don't ask questions like, that's your child? Oh, did you adopt? Those questions that like really don't give you anything. You're not gaining anything from knowing that knowledge, right? And same thing is like, if you have family members who choose to adopt, don't treat those children any different. That's something that really can make or break an a relationship. Like if I adopted and my mom decided not to treat my children the way that she would treat a biological grandparent or grandchild, that can ruin our relationship,
Mhm.
because if you're not going to be supportive and support my relationship with these children that I've built, because adopting is hard, fostering is hard, and if you can't respect and honor that, like, why would I want to be in a relationship with you and have a loving relationship with you if you aren't treating the children that I consider my own, blood or not, if you can't treat them the same as you would if I birthed a baby
Mhm.
vaginally? So be supportive, talk to them the way that you would talk to a child that lives in your family member's home, whether or not they're blood or not, whether or not they're biological. That goes for even like stepchildren. Those
Mhm.
are the same thing, you know what I mean? They may not be biologically related to your family member, but it's still somebody that they're welcoming into their home and treating them as their family. So if you can't respect that, you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say it. I encourage you to say nice things, be loving, care about them too. If you give one kid a gift that's biologically related to them, give the other kid. I mean, a lot
Mhm.
of people think that these are common things, but those type of things really happen. Like, this is not just for the movies. This really happens. So that's the biggest thing I would say. And if anything else, there are organizations, the ones that I mentioned, who are nonprofits. So in order for them to do the work, because they don't get money for every single service that they give, um, there's like all kinds of other things that go into play. But they do accept donations. I encourage you to look up child welfare agencies that are in your area, donate to them. They do some amazing work. They help keep families together too. They don't just take children and foster them. So those are the ways I would encourage everyone um, to do their part in supporting the National Adoption Month in November.
So, uh, number one is don't say stupid shit. Number
Don't say
two is
stupid shit.
do stupid shit. And number three is what? Open your purse.
Open that bag. You got that Birkin bag? Open that shit up.
I All right. So as always, want to leave y'all with a quote, but also just because, of course, I'm a doula, I'm always going to bring stuff back to birth work and doula support. And
After that,
support. There are doulas who support families through adoption. Like, we're magical. So like if you want someone to support you, like Ariana mentioned, like supporting families through making these hard decisions, or just knowing all of their rights and things that are required, or things that can help and support the family, get you an adoption doula. They're out there.
yes.
And then always wanting to end with a quote. Yes.
Absolutely. I shall read this quote. It is, "Our family is a circle of strength and love, founded on faith, joined in love, kept by God, together forever."
Oh,
Beautiful. I hope that resonates with you. If you even find a piece of that quote to be powerful, together forever, I found it in, there's so many good things in that quote. We can spend a whole podcast episode breaking that down, but I hope it leads you through your week. And any last words, Sydney?
I don't. Enjoy your family. It's the holiday season's coming up. fall, winter, flu season, all that. So, enjoy your family, love your family safely at a distance, keep each other safe, and I don't know, throw some virtual events to get it popping.
Yeah. Well, you've just listened to another episode of the Ari and Syd Show, and we hope to see you next time. Peace.